Look, in 2026, Formula One might have made the largest engineering blunder in its 75-year history. I'm not simply saying it, I'm telling you. The guys who drive these cars, the drivers, are crying out loudly. Charles Leclerc was the first to test drive the 2026 simulator, which he described as unfunny. Max Verstappen showed that he had serious issue with conserving power. It's basically a direct comparison to the regulation catastrophe of 2014, which gave Mercedes 8 years of complete domination, and one of the greatest drivers of all time is no exception. That's the man we refer to as Sebastian Vettel. We've read all the technical specs, all the driver comments we could find, and I think I have a pretty clear idea of what 2026 will look like in Formula One. In theory, it could prove to be the one thing that makes this sport special. So, don't bother with corporate PR, forget the FIA press releases. We will get straight to the point and let you know what's going on. This is Fast Throttle F1. The most basic of changes is the power unit, so let's get started with that. Come to think of it, when you read the numbers, it's kind of shocking. The internal combustion engine, the real petrol engine, falls by 550 kilowatts down to 400 kilowatts. That's a 27% decrease in raw engine power. At the same time, the electric motor, the MGU-H, jumps from 120 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts, increase electric generating capacity by almost 300%. The result is a 50-50 balance of combustion and electrical power. That changes the way these cars accelerate, the way they sound, and, most of all, their driving experience. Now, the FIA have two reasons for this. One, sustainability. They have pledged to become carbon neutral by 2030. Two, relevance. As petrol cars are phased out of road-based vehicles, they wish F1 to remain relevant. On the paper, it's fair, however, there is the engineering truth that they don't truly wish to discuss. The MGU-H. Since 2014, this bit of engineering wizardry has been a hallmark of hybrid F1. It can recover energy from the exhaust heat and return it to the system, and the present hybrid system is very efficient. It's a great piece of engineering. In 2026, it's gone, completely removed. And this is what people are not saying loudly enough. This isn't simplifying, this is regression. All of the 2026 cars would, in fact, be less energy efficient than the present cars, even though these possess a tremendous amount more electric power. To give you a taste of things to come, consider Monaco 2018. Daniel Ricciardo's MGU-H went on to fail mid-race. He ended up sacrificing about 20% of his overall power. Despite being truly brilliant at driving and the unique nature of Monaco, he still won the race. It's one of the most memorable drives in recent history. Under 2026 regulations, there's no such story. If you get rid of your hybrid system, you lose 50% of all your power, not coming back on the sweats. You are done. The risk of mechanical failure is now totally eliminated. When the top drivers the world over are raising red flags, it's not a dramatic maneuver, a very serious warning due to a fundamental design issue. So, the FIA's solution to improve the sport of F1 is to make F1 cars mechanical transformers. Literally. They've added active aerodynamics, where the front and rear wings change automatically depending on the car's position on track. High downforce, X mode, for corners. Z mode for the straights. Low drag mode. It can also be overridden by the driver. Bigger ambitions were had by the FIA here. 55% reduction, 30% downforce reduction. Sounds impressive. But in late 2024, they made an off-the-record adjustment to lower the downforce target down to 15%. They would have to water down their own regulations, since the initial goals were too high. Think about that. They were forced to change their own rules because it didn't work in real life. That's not fine-tuning. So that's conceding that the idea was flawed from the start. Since 2011, DRS has been F1's go-to overtaking tool. Press a button, the rear wing opens, your top speed jumps, you go past. Simple, predictable. Some people say too easy, but it worked. In 2026, it's gone, replaced by something called the manual override system. And here's why the override exists. Under the new rules, a car's electric power is actually designed to taper off at high speeds to conserve energy on the straights. On a long straight, the lead car's electric boost literally fades to zero as it approaches top speed. So the manual override is essentially a tactical fix for a flaw baked into the regulations. If you're within a set distance of the car ahead, you get a temporary license to bypass the normal energy rules and deploy your full 350 kilowatts of electric power for longer. The FIA calls it a tactical chess match. Do you use it at turn 1 or save it for the main straight? What I'd call it is replacing pure driver skill with battery management tactics. It's not the same thing. The demands for energy harvesting are also revolutionary. Modern cars are able to regenerate approximately 2 megajoules per lap, both via braking and through the MGU-H system. Regulations for 2026 call for consumption of 8.5 megajoules per lap. That's more than 4 times the energy recovery. Without the MGU-H, all that energy has to be converted to brake energy. That practically translates to drivers needing to change their driving habits around every single corner. Getting the energy back is as critical as lap time. It alters how racing is done in a huge way. These systems were tested at Monza in 2023, and Max Verstappen wrote about a car that was unable to maintain its speed in top gear, in that case necessitating full throttle downshifts. Consider that. The world's best driver is being instructed to drop gears whilst flat out, which in the real world would shear a gearbox, a mechanical act, apart from pure mechanical stress. Carlos Sainz said it's very complicated, takes up a lot of brain space when driving. Leclerc's words were succinct and to the point, and not pleasant. Much different driving experience from what drivers are accustomed to. What was different this year from 2014? At least the nature of F1 racing was preserved in the hybrid format of the time. These changes convert drivers from racers to energy management experts. Let's discuss one thing that the FIA would rather not discuss. What these rules have done to the beauty and the grind of F1. The change from V10s to V8s and then V6 turbos in 2014 already took away some of the authenticity of this sport. The first step to the turbos only made a difference of approximately 11 decibels, which on a decibel scale is a significant difference, but not a big one, as one might think. The raw, piercing cry was no longer present. The regulations of 2026, with a 50-50 split of combustion engine noise, will reduce the remaining combustion engine noise by half again. Electric motors are almost silent. At full speed, this is instead of a mechanical symphony. You hear the electric motors whirring and a dull, almost muffled engine noise. I feel that it's going to be an extremely jarring experience for a lot of the long-time fans. And the energy requirements will even influence the shape and sound of corners. It is possible that drivers will need to rev the engine in low gears mid-corner, not to pick up speed, but to create electrical energy through resistance. Imagine seeing cars doing their job on the hairpin in Monaco, not just to climb up to the front of the pack, but to charge a battery. It's an unusual sight for a sport that has been about pure speed all along. Next, the price, which could be the most telling factor of all. The 2026 laws are the costliest ever for F1. The budget cap, which was added to even the playing field, increases from $135 million to $215 million. A 59% increase. Budget caps were a feature of the FIA and were put into place to bring costs and competition under control. Now they've had to break their own budgetary walls due to the fact that the 2026 regulations are too costly to construct within reasonable parameters. New hybrid power units, active aero and energy management integration are huge development challenges for teams. Not to mention that Audi would come as a works team and add much more pressure on competition already competing. But here's the real hypocrisy. The FIA is trying to rationalise this financial explosion in terms of sustainability. Yes, 100% sustainable fuels have been a positive, and I am not downplaying that. However, consider the whole situation. These new hybrid technologies involve lithium mining for batteries, rare earth element mining for electric motors and motors, complex manufacturing, international delivery of components, and increased complexity that necessitates ever-frequent replacement. Even as this happens, F1 continues to move 20 cars and hundreds of people to 24 races annually. In order to make these regulations effective, they had to increase the budget cap by 59%. This is not responsible environmental action, it's a price tag with a green sticker. Therefore, from the technical data, the drivers' statements and past history, here is where I believe this is heading. The first 5 races of 2026 will almost surely feature a slew of reliability issues as teams grapple with the intricacies of the new systems. The driver adaptation crisis. I would say at least 3 of the current F1 drivers are going to have to find some way to cope with this. For some, it may be the end of F1 now. Manufacturer dominance. The intricacies of these units mean that one engine supplier will inevitably be first to the market and run with it, as Mercedes did in 2014 and has done since then. Also, the degradation of the spectacle. It's a real risk that as the artificiality of these systems becomes apparent to the many, so will the number of people who watch them. Last but not least, regulation reversal. I believe that by 2028, the pressure of the various teams, drivers and fans will cause the FIA to make a big change or step back on a lot of what they are doing now. This has occurred in the past with qualifying formats and points systems. It'll happen again. Look, I like Formula 1. It's why this channel was created. This is not a negative view with the aim of negativity. All the engineering, the driver feedback and the financial reality lead to the same conclusion. FIA has made political correctness a top priority over racing purity. Artificial over human skills of the driver. It's a question of sustainability rather than competitive integrity. The changes in 2026 go beyond evolution. They could very well be the breakdown of all the things that make Formula 1 the world's best motorsport. So, if you are thinking that the best driver should get the best results, not the best battery manager, then click that like button. Write a comment and let me know which of the 2026 changes you are most concerned about, and follow Fast Throttle F1. We're just beginning. You'll see me in the next one.